Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We apologize for running a couple minutes late. We were just trying to get our technology together. So please come in and welcome. We are excited. Let me just be one of the many people to congratulate you on your admission to Emory as students, as family members, as parents, as advocates. We are so excited on this great accomplishment of being admitted to Emory. And so we are here tonight to talk about, the community that you will be coming into, the support you will be given, and a lot of other information. So we're just going to hold tight for one more moment, and then I will turn it over to our distinguished panelists who have a wealth of information to share with you. All right. We have a lot of information that we want to get to, so we definitely want to be respectful of time. Let me introduce myself. My name is Timothy Fields. I am Senior Associate Dean in the Office of Undergraduate Admission. I've had the privilege of calling Emory almost 20 years. Most of that has been in undergraduate admission, but I also worked in Emory College in academic support and a couple other areas during my time here. So very excited to be here, and I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves and share their connection with the university. We can begin with, there are two, Dr. Jamie. So I'll start with you, James.
Actually, Christine, do you mind jumping in?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Christina Bethia Odejimi. I am the Associate Vice President for Belonging, Engagement, and Community and Dean of Students here at Emory University. I have been here since June 1st of 2023, and so almost a full year. And what it means to be a dean of students, a lot of what I deal with is really working with the students and getting them connected to resources, making sure that we are thinking holistically about the student experience as it relates to belonging, engagement, community. I directly oversee several offices. That is our Office of Case Management and Intervention Services, Student Conduct, our Belonging and Community Justice Spaces, which are 6 departments, which are our identity spaces. I work directly with our Parent and Families program, also oversee Open Expression, our Center for Civic and Community Engagement, our Student Involvement, Leadership, and Transitions area. A lot of areas, y'all. I oversee a lot of areas. I could keep going, but this is who I am, and I'm excited to get to some of your questions that you may have at the end of our presentation. Dr. Raper?
Thank you, Christina. So my name is James Raper. I'm the Associate Vice President for Health, Wellbeing, Access, and Prevention here at Emory. I am finishing up my second year here. I am responsible for kind of two areas in particular, two kind of buckets of responsibilities. One is the oversight of student health services, of counseling and psychological services, of the Office of Health Promotion, and of the Office of Respect. And then the other area of responsibility is to develop and implement and assess well-being strategy for all 16,000 Emory University students. It's been a real lovely time in the last 2 years at Emory. I'm a mental health professional by background, by identity, and I've been able to really connect with a lot of students, which is my segue to say, we started a few minutes late, both because of technology things, but also because James was late. James was late because I'm coming from a celebration dinner of my Student Wellbeing Advisory Committee, where we were celebrating our seniors who for the last 2 years have been a part of this inaugural group. For the students who are going to be joining us, who are on this Zoom, are going to be joining us in the fall, the Wellbeing Advisory Committee is something that you can participate in. It's really, really meaningful. And So apologies for my role in making us a little bit late, but there were selfies that had to be taken, and that took a little extra time. So Christine, if you want to move our slide forward. So what we're going to talk about tonight, this is a little bit of a preview of coming attractions, both for students, but especially for parents and families. And Dina Dejimi and I will be having a deeper version of this conversation, probably a little bit more emotional version of this conversation. When we see you all in August, we'll be a little sweatier because it'll be August. We'll have been moving in to the residence halls. We'll be coming out of pre-orientation activities, but also we're going to be preparing you for what your students are going to be experiencing in this coming a year as first-year students as in their entire time as university students at Emory. And we think it's really important that we help you as parents, family members, caregivers, loved ones, to feel seen and what that experience is like for you. It's kind of a win-win for everyone as we go through these things. So we want to first, at a bare minimum right now tonight, help you to and invite you to celebrate with the role you've taken in getting your students to where they are, to where you're having the opportunity to probably make some hard decisions if you haven't made them yet about Emory, and being able to come here. That is really something to celebrate. I had the good fortune, my family and I did, of being in a very similar situation about a year ago. My son is now a first-year student at Oxford College, and it's always an important time to acknowledge what we've all done to help our children get to where they are, where they can have really amazing decisions to make. And as we often say to parents, they're probably not going to fully acknowledge or help you feel seen in that. So we have to do this for ourselves. So Dino Dejim and I fully see you in the work that you have done, the labors that you put in to help support your students to get where they are. We'll talk a little bit tonight about what to expect about this first year, what the transitions are like, and then we'll make sure we close out, in addition to the Q&A, with making sure you know where to find out where the resources are as you're beginning to think about what living at Emory is going to be like, and how to make sure we're living more well. Thanks, Christina. So I mentioned I'm a mental health professional. I'm just going to say, to the degree that this feels inappropriate, if it feels like you're going to be embarrassing your child, this is the one time that I do encourage you all to fully embarrass your children. It's okay if they need to go to just one therapy session to deal with the embarrassment you created, if you do this as you are departing and they are leaving for Emory. So as we mentioned, in terms of celebrations, it's really normal throughout this process of beginning to think about what this transition is going to be about. My guess is, if you're anything like me, when my older son started his senior year of high school, is when I began going, oh, wait, these are some of the last moments. This is the last birthday where he's going to be definitely at home. This is the last time we're doing X, Y, and Z things. And so we want to first acknowledge that this is the beginning of a ongoing transition. The good news is, what sometimes we also forget during this big transition into college is that you've actually done this before as parents. You've done this. If you drop them off in daycare, that first time your sweet little nugget was dropped off in daycare, and you walked away and they're like, I'm leaving them in the care of someone else. Like, is this okay? Are they going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? Are they going to forget about me? That was always a big concern I had. And they definitely remembered you at the end of the day, right? When you're walking away for the first day of kindergarten, or their first sleepover, or their first date, or the first time if they had the opportunity to drive away, if they have a driver's license. And those are all times where you've been practicing as parents to develop this muscle of letting your child go a little more and more farther away, and yet knowing they're always going to come back to you. So I just want to remind everyone over these next few months, as you're preparing for the launch into college, that you've done this before, they've done this before. And most importantly for this particular discussion, that one of the reasons why we have, as Christina is going to tell us, hundreds of staff in campus life is to create a safety net, a support network, a web of care for your students, so they're not navigating this alone.
And one of the things I think is important to chime in is I recently read an article and it was talking about the anxiety of parents. And it literally said this month across the country, it's a New York Times article, this month across the country, a new cohort of students is being accepted into colleges. And if recent trends continue, the start of the school year will kick off another record-breaking season for anxiety on campus. I'm talking about the parents. The kids are mostly fine. And so I share that because I think there are a lot of pieces that we don't necessarily acknowledge, that parents and families and supporters don't necessarily acknowledge dropping their student off, that perhaps that anxiety is being placed on the student. It is fully appropriate for all the feels that you have that's going inside of you to happen. And they will become even more as the time gets closer for you to send your student away. And so we just want to normalize that, to say that that's normal. And also the kids are mostly okay.
Yeah, well said.
So this is Campus Life strategic purpose. Every student must be able to take full advantage of the extraordinary learning opportunities at Emory. All students must feel welcome and that they belong. That is the crux of what we do. This is why we do this work. It is really important to us. We know that college can be a transformational experience for many students. And so we want to make sure that students are able to experience Emory as they want to experience Emory. And part of that is for them to feel connected, that they're engaged, and that they belong. So this is our Emory kind of academic community of choice. We're really taking these talented students that, you know, you've helped to mold and cultivate, and they're going through our admissions process and then finding an opportunity for them to flourish, whatever that flourishing may be. Of course, academically, we have a lot of students who, of course, strive and really have high expectations for their academic performance. But then also, what are the other aspects? Where are the other areas where they find joy? Where are the other areas that give them life? And so we want students to be able to find those things that are for them. And that may look differently for everyone, but ultimately for them all to flourish. And then to seek the appropriate pathways for life beyond Emory, and then how they can then become engaged alumni. How are they giving back to the community? How are they staying connected with the community? And how are they able to pay it forward for those who come after them? So this is just our campus life overview. It's a big organization. And so I like to share this with people so that they're aware that the Emory Campus Life portfolio includes 24 departments. And we our stewardship for close to 40% of the campus footprint. So our operations of a wide range of programs and services and campus community spaces. So we, in addition to what you see here, we also have athletics that's within the division of campus life. And so I share that because you'll see a lot of the outdoor spaces. You're like, wow, that's a lot of outdoor space. So some of that is recreation facilities or wellness facilities as well through our athletic department. But a lot of student staff, which we think are really important, and how our students are engaging within the experience and also the feedback we get from those students when we're thinking about holistically the student experience, but then the numerous amount of professional staff and support that students have to really reach out to when they do need help. And there might be moments when they don't feel like they need help, but they want to cultivate a relationship, and those people are there to do just that. So this is our campus life executive leadership team. I would say the one in the middle is just stunning.
It's just a good-looking group. I'm sorry. I just have to say.
But this is our campus life executive leadership team. And so Nkugalai is our senior vice president and dean of campus life. And so she's wonderful. She's been here for about 5 years. Since 2019, David Clark, our vice president of campus life, primarily oversees all auxiliary services in addition to residence life, housing, fraternity, and sorority life. You heard the buckets that I oversee. Keiko Price, our director of athletics, and rec and wellness, our recreation programs. And then, of course, Dr. Raper. He's all right, I guess.
I'm growing on you, I think.
I think so.
So uh, we have the task of boiling down for the purposes of making sure that the decades and decades of research around college student development, traditional college age student development, is something that doesn't put you to sleep. And so we've taken those decades and boiled them down to, forgive me, 3 R's: responsibilities, relationships, and resilience. And so we're going to walk you through those, what we mean by those, how to operationalize those, and most importantly for y'all, some tips to think about. What does it mean for me as a parent, family, or loved one? So with regard to responsibilities, I like to say, actually broadly for all of them, that the job of a college student, even including the intellectual growth, the academic progress, it's basically the work of what's going on in here inside the sort of 1 cubic foot of brain space, and then also what's going on out here between myself and those around me as a college student. That means things like, what do I think? What am I interested in? What are my values? What do I believe in? Um, and and then the opposite of those things. What am I don't believe in anymore? Or I'm concretizing what my values already are, that my family instilled in me. And then in terms of like what's between us, what's out there, it's a lot of learning about who I care about, how to have healthy relationships, how to communicate effectively, how to set boundaries that are healthy, how to make choices that impact my relationships in a positive way. And there's a lot of learning experiences that particularly campus life is supporting students in making, and making sure they're making them in as safe a way as possible. So with regard to those first R of responsibilities, I think everyone joining us, every parent I've ever talked to really over the last almost 25 years, we've talked about this idea when you come to your first year of college as a first-year student in your first semester, one of the hardest pieces, and it's almost like another like 3 or 4 credit class, you just don't get credit for it, is how to figure out how to like live life on your own, independently, how to make decisions about your time. I mean, the joke is, how do you like, are you going to make any decisions about actually doing your laundry? Probably not. I did not do that at all. But these are the kinds of sort of activities of daily living, if you will, that in addition to figuring out how to be a good student and organize your time to study, and also create time to develop new relationships, shore up existing relationships, navigate to particular buildings. This is a lot. And so while we are organized in campus life to help support that, and we do a lot of extra intentional in those first 6 weeks of the first semester, support of students, helping students navigate, reminding them of what to go, where to go, and when and how. The role that parents can play that's really important to transition into the college experience is to move from being the supervisor or the director of your students' lives to being that of a consultant. So students, as you know, from birth, preschool, K to 12, their lives are pretty structured, and that's rightly so. And the more that their brain is developed, the more that their lives are become a little bit more up to them. And this is this next step into college where they're getting to make some choices and understand then the consequences of those choices. And that's how we learn, is through that back and forth of choices and consequences, things that worked out, things that didn't, and hopefully learning from those things. So being a supervisor or a director and moving that to consultant means what your role is to be educated, which is in part why we do what we're doing in this presentation. And what you'll get a lot of over the course of the summer and during orientation is learning about what the resources are, what the strategies are, but letting your student come to you, your child come to you, and you can help use some of that Socratic questioning as opposed to then giving them the answer. Because this is how they're going to develop that problem-solving skills that we all want them to have throughout the rest of their life. It's really hard. And I've been preaching this for, no joke, 20 years. And I was in the first week of my child being a first-year student here at Emory at Oxford, and I didn't do it. And I was like, I just didn't do it. I couldn't stop myself. It was a compulsion. So I know it's hard, but I had lovely people supporting me through it, reminding me you got to be a consultant instead of being a director. It is very important as a parent, and this is a wonderful time because you have a few months to go to make sure you're either having sometimes for the first time, but hopefully you're renewing conversations around these really important self-care, well-being issues, the importance of sleep, what your family's values are about relationships, about the relationship to food and their bodies, the relationships to alcohol and other drugs, if that's relevant for your family. These are things to talk about openly and have an open conversation about, as opposed to, this is what we think you need to go do this. The invitation to treat them more like adults, because they will be given those responsibilities. So we want this to be an ongoing, safe relationship that you have with them, where they can come back to you and continue to re-engage you in these kinds of conversations over the next few years and beyond.
I think one of the biggest
Yeah.
things, I'll jump in real quick, James, is the biggest transition that we see families make, especially if this is their first student that they have coming to college, is access to information. You're so used to having a lot of access to information. I'm actually bound by federal law where I cannot give you information regarding your student unless I have express written consent. And so sometimes the parents are like, well, I'm gonna get you that express written consent. I don't necessarily recommend that. I think it's best that you are actively having conversations around what information are we going to share? How often are we going to be in communication? When grades come out, let's have that conversation about what your grades are. You know, I think it's really important because it allows students to really have the agency to go through this experience as they should be going through it as an adult, but also with guidance from those who love and support them and want to see the best for them. And so this is the piece that I really do hope that you all take to heart and start having those conversations that Dr. Raper is talking about, because that is going to be a big shift as far as just knowing about what's going on. It's really helpful to start those conversations early.
Thanks, Christina. The last thing I'll say for responsibilities for now is, I spent 20 years having confidential conversations in therapy with college students. And that's a unique perspective, because often they're saying things for the first time out loud in the sort of safety of a confidential relationship with a mental health professional. And one of the things that's true that always surprised parents that when I would describe generally this trend, I'm not very confidentiality, but just sort of describe the trend, is your students really do listen to you. It may not feel that way. They may not give you the feedback that they're listening, like eye contact or saying it back to you. But what I've been hearing for decades is they know what their parents are thinking. They think a lot about you, believe it or not. And so I want to reinforce also then that these conversations are about what is important to you as a member of the family. Keep them connected to that sense of identity as whatever your family structure looks like, however that makes sense for you. Make sure you're having those and naming those out loud, because it'll be really a nice lifeline for them as they're sorting out these sort of new experiences in a new setting at Emory. So the next slide, the next R is relationships. This is the second of the three. As I mentioned, this is sort of what's going on between here and those around us. To some degree, it's also, I'll say, the relationship with myself. We learn a lot about ourselves in the traditional college age years. Part of that is because that's what happens developmentally to our brains. We are able to understand ourselves better. That would happen whether or not we were in college. But I would say places like Emory are set up to also facilitate that even more, to facilitate that critical thinking, reflection, purpose making. You've hopefully been exposed to the purpose projects as part of our Flourishing initiative for student flourishing. So this is us aligning what we know to be true about college students and really amplifying it at a place like Emory. If one of my strong invitations, and I know Dean Adejimi agrees, is to make sure that students first, get a little bit of a foothold as they're getting to know the Emory community with things that already feel familiar to them. If they like playing ultimate frisbee, if they were on the chess team before and that was meaningful, or they were in theater, or they played an instrument, or they're into comic books. There are clubs that support just about every interest under the sun at Emory. So start with something that feels familiar and they want to continue to deepen their interest in it. But please, please, please also invite them, and we do the same things with them when they get here. Also explore, stretch, spread their wings, try new things. Even if you go a few times, you're like, I tried it and that's not my thing. That's great. That helps them refine what they're interested in. It helps them get exposed to new people, to new experiences. And, we're all of a particular age, I'm imagining, as parents, family members, and loved ones. We look back to our times when we were in our late teens and early 20s, I think probably pretty fondly and wistfully about like the ability to like just try. It's like a petri dish. Just like let's just try new stuff, and with pretty low consequence with regard to exploring new clubs and interests. So we certainly encourage that. Normalize, again, we all do this. We're all partners in this as parent, family members, loved ones, and then all of the campus life team and faculty and staff that we as humans can feel more than one feeling at once. And there's going to be a lot of feelings going on, whether or not you're aware of it, whether or not they're sort of demonstrating it. There's a lot of feelings going on for every first year student as they're adjusting to a new place. Even adjusting to really exciting, amazing places can create anxiety and create a sense of homesickness, because change is just hard for all of us as humans, even if it's changing into wonderful stuff. They can feel anxious about leaving their parents at home. They really do think about you. They can be anxious about little things, what might seem little, like what's going to happen to my room if I have a room by myself. What's going to happen to it? Are you taking it over? Please don't do that the first semester. If you can just leave it, that's really a good suggestion. Just pro tip. And they also will feel pretty anxious about what's going on with their friends who may have gone away to different places that aren't Emory. And because they're seeing them now at a distance and on social media, they're going to be seeing them with now new friends. And there can be a sense of anxiety about that, of some competition around that. Am I losing my place, my status, my relationship with these people who I've been friends with in high school? And so, again, a little bit of a pro tip if they come home for something like Thanksgiving break or for winter break, they may come home and not pay much attention to you at all and immediately go to hang out with their friends from home because they haven't seen them in person in a while. And I just want you to know, just in case, just file this away. It's, 7, 8, 9 months ahead. I want you to know that means they have secure attachments to you. That's the phrase I want you to remember. That means they feel safe with you, but they need to go tend to the relationships they feel less safe about. They need to reshore up those relationships. So if in case that happens, I'm not saying it's got to feel good, but I want you to be reassured. Nothing bad has happened. They still love you very much. It's that they feel pretty good about you. I don't need to worry about you. I got to go worry about these people over here.
So then we get to this piece around resilience, and resilience is like any other skill. We want students to really think about how they're learning to deal with failures and disappointments, and that takes practice. And so sometimes students do not want to fail, and so they then therefore don't even decide to take any risk or step outside of their comfort zone. And we really want to encourage them to do that, because we know some of the best lessons that we learn in life can actually only be taught through failure. And so we really want students to understand that even when they do fail, there are support systems, there are people that are here to make sure that they are able to bounce back and persevere and move on. It shouldn't be that failure has crippled them to the point that they feel like everything is a lost cause. It's not. And it's a really important thing to note, because when you're coming into a place like Emory, they may have come from different environments where they were the brightest one in their class or in their school. Well, everyone's smart here at Emory. And so then people feel like they have to be in this competition with other people. And what I will say is they don't need to do that. They just need to kind of do their own thing, run their own race, but know that there's a lot of support that is there if they have a setback. We know that everyone's transition to Emory will look different. Some people may transition from being homesick. Some people may transition with the academic rigor. Some may transition socially. It just kind of depends. And so we want to be sure that there are things that we need to do we will provide to them. And some of those things we can anticipate. We know what some of those things are that most, first year new students experience. But then there's other things that'll be individual needs that a student has. And we want to be sure that we are empowering them to communicate what those needs are so that they can get the support in place sooner rather than later. This other piece, our current culture, when I talked about, it's kind of wired us to be afraid of failure or risk. I think this other piece that we've worked through is this fear of not appearing perfect on social media. And so James talked about what he was doing just before he got on the call, but I'll let him pitch the piece around reframes, which I think is really important. This concept of perfectionism, and that students feel like that they have to do that and be that, or something is wrong with them. We really try to dispel that. We understand that that is a high bar, and to be at that bar consistently is exhausting. It will wear you out, and it will be mentally draining. And so how do we make sure that students are reframing and understanding that just because they are not perfect does not mean that they're not thriving?
Yeah, thanks for the segue. I briefly would just encourage folks to, after we close tonight, to, if you've not seen already, on Emory's social media, or on their website, go to reframes.emory.edu, and you'll get a sense of what we've been doing since mid-February. We had an amazing experience over the last 18 months in developing, implementing this campaign of senior leaders across the institution, faculty members, deeply respected folks who students asked to tell their story of failure, of misstep, of mistake, of things just not going their way in life, and what they learned from it. And so throughout the development of this campaign, we engaged students to help us craft it in a way that would be meaningful to them, because they were very, very hungry for this message. When we showed them, it's one of the most meaningful experiences I've had as a professional, when we showed them a preview of like a rough cut of some of these videos. This was probably 6 months ago. Some of them were crying on the advisory committee that I host, because they were so touched by the stories. And this is what they said: they're so touched by the stories, but they were also just so moved by, they felt like the institution was seeing and putting resources into and putting time and intention to the things that really matter to them, which is to talk about how hard it is to come to any to be a high achieving student at any great school. So I think we've struck a chord with this. I am sorry that you're gonna have to put up with listening to me in one of these videos, so just feel free to fast forward that one. But we were already moving into planning for our kind of next season, if you will, of round 2 of our Reframes campaign. The most important thing to know about this, it's not just about the stories. How do we engage our students to practice this really important skill set of seeing each other more as humans, to take off the masks of perfectionism? That is what, in terms of well-being, that's how we create a more well community, is a place where all folks can practice bring their full selves to it and not perform as if. And so we've been hosting dinners where students can practice that. That's literally what I was just coming from, was a dinner with my advisory committee, doing some of these having some of these reframed conversations so they could have that experience. And there are going to be lots more next year for the students that are going to be arriving. So this is going to, what's really fun is that this incoming class is going to be the first full cohort to experience this cultural shift that we're working really hard to make.
And I think it's a critical one. I mean, a lot of times the students that we're seeing that may be entering Emory have not experienced a lot of setbacks or moments where they've had to practice their resilience. And so this is a really critical piece, but it's also an important message for families, because when we see those moments that have happened for our student, whatever that may be, in whatever transition they may be in, there's this well-intended rescuing that sometimes may want to happen. We want to try to tell you to refrain. Try to refrain from doing those things, because again, it's going to be really important that students strengthen their resiliency muscle. So some tips for families and for supporters and parents. really think about, again, this piece around reframing failure, right? And how do we think about the learning opportunities that are happening in those important moments? I think it's also for us to think about how do we think about the work that's ahead? So where are we trying to get to versus where did we end up? What are we trying to get to? And how did we take some more steps? Did we get to a place where we learned something in the process, even if we didn't reach that final destination that we thought we were going to do? Again, it's about the journey. We try to tell you to think about anticipating problems early on. There's probably things that they're going to think about, and that's okay. And to normalize that, that's going to be an important piece for them. I think that they also have to be reminded, just as Dr. Raper did at the beginning, like, you've done this before, you've dropped them off at these places. Remind them that they have struggled before, that they have persevered. Give them examples of how they did that. And now they're just learning to be a college student. It's kind of the start over. You've done this high school experience, you thrived in that, and now it's kind of like you're starting again to kind of learn all the different pieces about what it means to be a college student, what it means to be on your own in this environment. What does it look like to establish and to make connections with new people that you hope will be lifelong friends? What does that look like? That may feel rocky for some people. Maybe they find their friend the first day, but maybe they don't find that their solid friend until their first year. The transition depends on the student. Share your own struggles. They really do get a kick out of understanding and hearing about moments in your own life where you might have failed, or maybe you had a setback, and they're like you did that? I can't even imagine. They're often surprised that you're even willing to share it. And so think about the things that are reasonable that you want to share with them as far as a setback, and talk about how you kind of went through that and persevered. And then, of course, be their cheerleader. Like, they are looking to you often to get that reassurance. We try to tell students to also share the good with you, because they are comfortable with you. They sometimes just kind of overload and just give you all the information about everything that's going wrong. I don't have any friends. I can't find anywhere to go. No one likes me. And then you hear some in the background, hey, you want to go to such and such? You're like, hey, I got to go. I got to go connect with this person. You're like, I thought you didn't have any friends. This happens all the time. And so we try to also tell them, please share with your families what's happening with the good, because they are so quick to unload everything on you, and they feel much better. And then you're left feeling anxious about, did we make the right decision? Did they make the right? What can I do? They need help. Then you email me 5 times, and I'm like, I promise that they're fine. We got them connected. So we are trying to help them to also make sure that they're communicating holistically what their experience is about.
So, I've already named I'm of a particular generation, and Fred Rogers was a big part of my life growing up. So, Mr. Rogers, I love and love this quote a lot, because I would say it really describes why I love working in higher ed and why I love working in a place like Campus Life. When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And that's absolutely our ethos. It's why we love working here at Emory. It's a vibrant group, and we are very, very student-centered. We are deeply committed to ensuring that for all students, they find a place here, they see themselves here, and that they can bring their full selves. Because only if they can do that, they can then take full advantage of all that Emory has to offer and be prepared for the world that awaits them. And Emory students are just incredible humans. It's been a lovely time as I've joined the community in the last few years. So that leads us to want to make sure you know where to navigate to if you have additional questions in the interim, as you're doing more homework about how to become a really good consultant for your student. That means becoming more knowledgeable about what the resources are. And this is sort of your one-stop shop, studentwellbeing.emory.edu. So when you pick any of these dimensions, it's going to take you both to information about what it means. What does emotional well-being look like? How do students experience it? at Emory and in life. And then also, what are the resources that we have, the offices, the services, the initiatives, the programs to support emotional well-being. And that's true for all of these. So this is a good place to start. It's really comprehensive, a nice clearinghouse of information. I should say we are lifting up our inaugural well-being framework in the fall. It will be accompanied by a well-being festival. And when I say festival, I mean festival. It is going to be a lot of fun and very big. So all of that's going to means we're totally revamping this website. So this is all sort of at once. So the same information is going to be there. It'll be a lot better information in terms of how accessible it is for you, and make sure it's also reflective of our 8 dimensions of well-being. More to come over the course of the summer and into the semester.
Thank you. Thank you for that great information. And obviously they have their contact information right there. We have the Q&A box open. And so our first question is, how about fitness? Is there any way to make sure the students some form of fitness, physical fitness?
Yeah. So I'll take a stab at that, Christina. We have one of the pieces that I love a lot about coming to Emory, because I have another experience where I worked at a Division I school, is coming to a Division III school. We get the benefits of having a student athlete population that is deeply embedded in the student population broadly. So those identities are both important, but also it's not something where they're really set apart. It also means that we have all of our athletic facilities, programs are embedded in campus life. So as Christina named at the beginning, which you were seeing our executive leadership team, one of our associate vice president colleagues is our director of athletics. And underneath Keiko Price is, in addition to all of our athletic teams and clubs, are our recreation programs and our RecWell programs and initiatives. And the physical spaces that we are responsible for that supports student physical fitness, movement, to put it a little bit more broadly, to ensure that students of all abilities and accesses can engage their bodies in a way that is more well. That is a deep part of our ethos, because we also know, much like with many of the other dimensions that we talk about, we're setting up our students for life, to be successful in life. And we know that movement is a critical part of that. It helps us emotionally, it helps us psychologically, helps us with our strength and fitness. Otherwise, it's also a very social activity. So it's another way we can develop relationships, both in their time at Emory and beyond.
I would say ditto,
You know,
and I
the
would say that there's multiple, in addition to just individual like fitness equipment, there's also actual classes and group classes that students can participate in addition to our indoor pool, our outdoor pool. We have an outdoor pool as well that's bumping. People love the outdoor pool.
It's true.
And so there's a lot of different ways. All of our stuff is accessible. Our courts, our sand volleyball court, right? So there's plenty to do. And whatever is really up in their wheelhouse, it's pretty much available, in addition to the other clubs and intramurals, and also student organizations that also may have a fitness component.
And the only thing I'll add is there is a part of the Emory curriculum, a part of the general education requirements, that does require a physical education course. And then also there is a course that is based upon nutrition. And so while it's not all 4 years, there is going to be a requirement that students have to take a physical education course. And that is very vast. It can be yoga, it can be swimming. There are a lot of great other opportunities within that. Is Emory in a good neighborhood?
I like it.
Yeah, you live, we both live close by.
We do.
I would, so Christina and I both, if you joined late, I'm not sure if you shared this, Christina, when you've been here, but Christina and I both have just moved here in the last 2 years, Christina last year. So we have that kind of perspective of investigating the neighborhoods and understanding the area. I came from a much more suburban location in North Carolina. And so I was really curious about this, how Emory is situated within Atlanta, specifically in Druid Hills. And so I would describe Emory's location as being perfectly situated, as almost suburban in its feel immediately around campus. And so easy, very easy, very walkable, Lord knows. Lots of access to public transportation. But then also, I mean, not even 2 miles, 2.5 miles away is Midtown Atlanta. And so I think it has deep access, students have deep access into the nightlife, the cultural experiences, all the activities that a serious city like Atlanta brings, while also being embedded in a campus that's nestled pretty much in a suburban environment. What else would you say, Christina?
No, I mean, I came from a rural area in Maine. Yes, the state of Maine. And I'm originally from Maryland near the DC area. And so growing up, I was very accustomed to kind of living in or close to a city. And to me, I feel safe. I don't feel like there's a ton of crime or anything like that where Emory is situated. We're still an open campus. And so, of course, you want to take the necessary precautions as you would with being either if people are walking by themselves or anything like that. But I would say that I think we are a very safe campus and in a safe area. The other thing that I think is nice is, Emory has their own accredited police department, in addition to being in close collaboration also with our the DeKalb County Police Department and Atlanta Police Department. So there's coordination there, but I feel very safe being on campus. We're right down the street from the CDC. Like literally, the CDC is like a 3-minute drive, not even
Yeah.
like a minute 30 seconds, really. So I feel pretty good.
Are
Other
there any,
questions?
yeah, other questions? I want to make sure y'all take advantage of the great resource you all have before us as far as our guests. If not, historically, I don't know how many of these conversations y'all been part of, but in the Office of Admission, we like to always try and end these on why Emory. So as these families and students are going about to making decisions of all the great institutions that they may have before them, we ask the question, why Emory? And it's why did you choose Emory? And so we'll begin with you, Dr. Raper.
I chose Emory because, well, as an employee, but also as a parent. As an employee, I chose Emory because of from the from President Fenves to Provost Bellanconda to Senior Vice President Delai. Those are the three people above me. There is a deep, deep student-centered commitment. And it was both talked about as I was interviewing and being recruited, but let me tell you, in the last 2 years, every day I see it lived out. It's very authentic, it's very real, it's very consistent. So that's the kind of leading with values that I want to be a part of, and I'm certainly honored to be a part of the team. And obviously, that made it very easy to support my child's decision to attend Emory as a first-year student, and it's been affirmed as I've been listening to his experiences as a student. He feels very supported. He loves his contact with faculty, how available and accessible they are. He does engage them because I make him. That's a parental thing, by the way. Go to office hours, and he does that. So it's been a win from both of those identities for me.
I think for me, I can't say ditto enough to what Dr. Raper said as far as the deep commitment. I mean, as you kind of move up in these roles, it's more about who you work for and also making sure that you believe in the mission and the values of the institution. And I deeply felt that when I visited Emory, understanding the mission, the value, meeting the students who were phenomenal, and then knowing that I had a team of people who would support my work and support really thinking about our student experience collectively and really providing an awesome experience for our students. And again, an awesome experience and a great student experience doesn't mean that that's free of challenge, right? or free of grief or even free of discomfort. But it does allow it to be a truly educational environment, both inside and outside of the classroom. So that was really critical for me. One of the things I would say is we know that your student may have many different opportunities to pursue as far as for their next kind of 4 years as they're thinking about their college experience. And although clearly we chose Emory, so you should too. But what I will say is ultimately, we want students to be able to be in a place where they feel like they can thrive. And we recognize that that may not be Emory for some people, and that's okay, because ultimately we want to see you be successful. But if you choose Emory, please know that you have a team of some people and support networks that will help to make sure that you are getting the resources and guidance that your student needs in order to persist and to seek and ultimately for degree attainment.
Thank you, thank you. And so we have some light questions, and we still do have a couple of minutes, so definitely want to address these. The first one is, how accessible are outdoor activities, hiking, biking, and water sports?
Yeah, that's great. So this is something, again, if forgive me for talking about my personal experience, but my family and I, four, are really engaged when we were living in North Carolina. We lived close to the mountains, and I was most curious about how we'd adjust to the Atlanta environment and make sure we still had access to those. So we are also situated closely to the Blue Ridge Mountains. They're about an hour drive out north. We have within a 20-minute drive Stone Mountain, which is an incredible place to both hike, walk if you're not into hiking, bike. There is a actual bike trail from Emory to Stone Mountain and back if you really want to bike. That's a bike lane only. And then water sports, in addition to our pools, which we're kind of well known for, there's the Chattahoochee River right at the very north of Atlanta, which is pretty incredible. I'm not a kayaker, but I have friends who are, and they love it. I've been very, very pleasantly surprised, particularly my partner and I, and our abilities to take our kids on our family hikes that we love.
Next question, do students need a car?
No, I don't think I mean, what do you think, James? I don't think students need cars. I mean, our bus transportation system is so fluid. Like it goes on our campus, it goes to the Claremont campus. And so there's so many things to do that's also walkable. They also, our buses take them into different parts of the city as well around Emory, whether it's to the grocery store or to go out to eat with their friends or anything else. We also have different initiatives that our student governments are hosting around getting students access to other different parts of Atlanta through our Student Involvement Leadership and Transition Office. They host different excursion and events in the city of Atlanta, whether that's major sporting events like to the Falcons or the Hawks game, or to other like festivals that happen in Atlanta. So I would say that it's pretty accessible with our actual Emory transportation, but also the public transportation in Atlanta. Thoughts, James?
I would add, I don't believe actually first-year students can have a car.
No, they can't. I didn't get to that part yet, but
Yeah.
because I was really looking at the question, because it said, do they need one?
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna go with the need first, and then hit them with a zinger.
So no, and there's a reason why, right? Because of all
Right.
the things you then, you just buried the lead there, Christina, but that's because of that. Yeah, we're good. So yeah, all the reasons that Christina said, it would be, I would think, more of a burden to have one as a first year student on the Atlanta campus than to.
Well, and then there's nowhere to park. They wouldn't be able to
That's what I
park.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be very difficult.
Yeah, and just if I could just point of clarification, at Emory, students are not allowed to have a car on their
Correct.
first year.
Correct.
If they do enroll in Oxford, they are allowed to have a
Right.
car.
Atlanta versus Oxford.
Yeah, which brings us to our final question, which James, I think you'll lead. How does support differ for students on the Oxford campus than the Atlanta campus?
Well, you know me so well at this point. Yes.
I didn't know you had a son at Oxford. So, I think you can, touch it from all places.
Well, I was going to say, it's actually for the other reason, which is my actual job. It's one of the things when I came in was
Yeah.
to look at and make sure we are ensuring that students, no matter the campus, are having an experience that is supported with deep parity across between campuses. So there is either the same service or a parallel service scaled down because it's a much smaller campus. It's 1,000 student campus that's only first and second year students. So there's a few things going on there, including, you're only creating services that are targeting developmental experiences of first and second year students in one campus. The other piece of it is it's in a more rural setting in Georgia, about 35 minutes away from where the Atlanta campus is. And so that context matters too. So you want to create a little bit more sustainability on the Oxford campus because there is not a walkable, you don't walk to the hospital as you can right here on the Atlanta campus if you needed that for any reason. So, but I would say again, then from a parent perspective, I've gotten to know, I know very well our student support folks there on the Oxford campus as I've tried to develop those relationships, and I've been very, very impressed, very affirmed. Obviously, I feel very comfortable having my son there, so I've been pleased with it. Christina, what would you add?
The only thing I would add is that we're often in communication, even on the Atlanta campus, with our Oxford colleagues. And because we know our students eventually will transition to the Atlanta campus, we are looking at how we make that transition more seamless. But a lot of the services and support is similar to the services and support that are on the Emory campuses. I mean, even the departments are the same. The student involvement, leadership, and transition is on Oxford campus like it is on the Atlanta campus. And so I've probably been on Oxford campus at least 4 times since I've been here at Emory, specifically to talk to my Oxford colleagues around just services, care, support, so we can think about holistically how we are thinking about our services comprehensively when we talk about the student experience.
And I just want to underline that, no matter which campus you start at, you are an Emory University student. So
That's right.
there are no distinctions made in services. Obviously, there's scale. There's a shuttle that runs back and forth between Oxford and the Emory College campus, daily. So if students want to access the campus, they have those opportunities. I want to, thank you all for this discussion. This has been very, very helpful. I will just, end on my why Emory, I think, which is, really kind of put a bow on this conversation. Like I said, I've been at Emory for almost 20 years. And the one thing that, keeps me here is Emory's always willing to have the hard conversation. How can we improve? How can we get better? How can we, create spaces for students so that they can grow not only academically, but socially, emotionally, and in all ways. In the diversity at this place, I think will compete at any institution, no matter how you define diversity, making sure the students have a good experience. And so I thank you, Dr. Ojanemi. Thank you, Dr. Raper, for all the work you all do, y'all's entire staff, to make sure the students have a great experience while they're here. We thank everybody for tuning in. Please continue to be in touch. Congratulations again, and we wish you all the best. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thanks, y'all.
All right. Y'all have a good night.